The first sign wasn't the fire. It was silence. The birds stopped singing. The winds calmed. Even the old comm towers, always buzzing with static or broken emergency broadcasts, went still. Maeve Carter stood in her backyard, barefoot in the cold dirt, watching the sky turn the color of ash. Her tablet had gone dead 5 minutes ago, just before every cloud in the sky flattened into a smooth silver sheet. Then the sky cracked open. It started with a single beam, searing white, impossibly bright, dropping from the stratosphere and punching through downtown Lexington like a needle through cloth. A second beam followed, then a dozen more. They didn't explode like missiles. They didn't roar like jets. They simply erased. Whatever they touched turned to nothing. No smoke, no rubble, just glowing glass. Maeve didn't scream. Not yet. She turned to run into the house. "Mom!" on her lips. But her mother was already there, eyes wide, dragging Maeve back inside. They barely made it to the basement when the first tremor hit. The floor pitched like a boat, shelves toppled, and dust rained down from the ceiling. Somewhere outside, the Carter home groaned, splintered, and vanished. When Maeve came to, her ears were ringing and the air stank of metal and ozone. Her mother's hand was still in hers, cold, too still. Blood traced down her temple. Maeve shook her. Once. Twice. Nothing. Above them a humming began. They're still here, Maeve realized. Whatever they were, they hadn't just hit the cities. They were sweeping outward, methodical, like they were cleaning the planet. She staggered, to her feet. The emergency pack in the corner, a leftover from an earthquake scare last year, was still intact. She slung it on, grabbed her mother's cracked phone, and climbed through the broken basement window into a new world. Everything was quiet again. And then she saw them. Tall, skeletal shapes moved through the smoke. Not walking, gliding. Machines. But not like anything Maeve had ever seen. Organic metal shifting in the light, with limbs that folded the wrong way. Drones swarmed above them like wasps. One scanned the wreckage of a car, sprayed something blue, and moved on. Efficiency. Precision. They weren't here to negotiate, they were here to own. Maeve ducked behind a broken retaining wall, hands trembling. She had no weapons, no allies, no clue what was happening. But she wasn't stupid. These things weren't just destroying, they were cataloging. The world was being sorted like data on a hard drive. All the chaos and noise of humanity being wiped away to make room for... What? A low whir passed overhead. One of the drones hesitated, its light scanning the wall she hid behind. Her heart thudded so loud she thought the thing could hear it. And then, a shout. Distant. Human. The drone turned. A crack echoed. Gunfire. Real gunfire. Maeve blinked, confused, until the wall beside her buckled. A hand yanked her into a run. "Move!" a voice barked. She stumbled after him, a man in scavenged gear, blood on his jacket, rifle slung across his chest. He didn't look back, just ran. They sprinted through the ruins of Vesper Ridge, past homes turned to craters and cars melted into slag. Maeve's legs burned, lungs screamed, but she didn't stop. Not until they ducked into a rock crevice behind, an outcropping that looked like it had once been a playground. The man finally turned, panting. His eyes scanned her, assessing. She realized he wasn't much older than 20. "You alone?" he asked. Maeve nodded, unable to speak. He grunted. "Name's Beck. You just earned yourself another day alive, kid." She finally found her voice. What are they?" Beck looked up toward the sky, now scarred with dozens of hovering black specks. "Empire," he said darkly. "Zarnathi, I heard. They've been steamrolling colonies for decades. We just didn't think they'd come for Earth." "Why?" Maeve whispered. Beck smiled grimly. "Because they thought we were easy." Maeve looked back at the smoldering. Remains of her home and her mother's blood still on her hand. They thought wrong. The mountains became her world. 3 weeks after the fall, Maeve Carter was living on stale protein bars, melted snow, and rage. She'd followed Beck's group, 3 veterans, 2 engineers, and a grizzled dog named Juno, into the deeper woods, far beyond where the Zarnathi seemed to patrol. But seemed was the problem. The aliens weren't just methodical, they were curious. Drones came in pulses, scanning, sampling. Every few nights the stars shimmered as a black shape. Something massive and silent glided through orbit like a shark through water. The Resistance, if you could call it that, had rules. Never use electronics, never leave metal exposed, never stay more than 2 nights in one place. Maeve broke all of them. She needed to know, needed to understand, not just to survive, but to fight. Beck watched her with quiet suspicion. She spent hours in the wreckage of downed drones, picking apart wires and tendrils like puzzle pieces. She stole tools from the supply pack. She scribbled diagrams on bark with charcoal. "I don't get it," muttered Reyna, a former orbital tech, watching Maeve rewire a cracked Zarnathi core with parts from a camping lantern. "You didn't even finish high school, right?" "I finished the parts that mattered," Maeve replied, not looking up. "And I watched every bootleg orbital engineering course my mom downloaded." "You're not building a science fair project. That's alien tech." Maeve adjusted the lens on a broken sensor node. "It still runs on logic, and logic could be broken." It happened on a cold, glassy night. The drone came in low, too quiet to hear over the wind, until Maeve saw its reflection flicker in the icy pond. She shoved the others down, rolled behind a dead log, and waited. The drone paused above the campsite. A light pulsed beneath it, blue, then red, then blue again. Scanning. Maeve didn't think. She grabbed the signal scrambler she'd rigged, a jury-rigged canister of copper wire, 2 battery packs, and the Zarnathi core, and slammed the activation switch. A pulse burst out like a silent ripple. The drone's light flickered. It dropped 5 feet in the air, twitched, then righted itself, just in time to take a shotgun blast from Beck's perch in a pine tree. It hit the ground, sparking and hissing. Maeve ran to it. She crouched beside the wreckage, ignoring Beck's, shouting. The drone spasmed, its limbs still moving, trying to transmit. She yanked the core. Silence. The others gathered around her, stunned. "You blinded it," Reyna said. 30 seconds of pure signal noise. "Crashed its onboard AI," Maeve muttered, still panting. "It didn't expect us to fight back with chaos. You just made a kill, a real one." Maeve stood, trembling, the core still in her hands. "Then let's make it count." The next day, the video leaked. Someone, probably Reyna, stitched together footage from a helmet cam and broadcast it on every old Earth frequency the Zarnathi hadn't jammed. It showed Maeve's scrambling device, the downed drone, the blast. Her face was only partially visible, but the message was unmistakable. A girl just took down alien tech with scrap and spite. It spread through pirate networks, old weather satellites, even subspace trade routes the Zarnathi didn't bother blocking. Off-world colonies picked it up. So did smugglers, mercenaries, scavengers, and unfortunately, so did the Empire. 6 days later, a new kind of drone arrived, twice the size, armored, hunting. It didn't scan, it searched. The Resistance moved. Constantly now. More people joined. Some brought weapons, others brought news. Whispers from captured outposts said the Zarnathi had issued their first planetary bounty, not on the humans in general, on the girl, no name, just a code name, translated from a phrase their machines had picked up from an intercepted radio feed. The Ember. Maeve stared at the charred wanted hologram that someone had pulled from a hacked Zarnathi beacon. She didn't recognize herself in the flickering red projection. Just a shadowy figure, one hand raised, fire behind her. Below, the alien glyphs translated into one message: locate, capture, burn. Beck looked at her, half impressed, half afraid. You scared 'em. Maeve folded the image and slipped it into her coat. Good, she said. Let them come. Maeve's fingers trembled as she traced the jagged edges of the doorframe, half buried beneath decades of dust and rust in the old mining facility hidden deep in the Blue Ridge Mountains. The faint hum of generators and flickering lights told her this place was still alive somehow. Beck and Reyna followed, their faces tight with exhaustion and hope. They had reached the underground resistance node, the heart of what remained of Earth's fragmented fight. Maeve swallowed her nerves and stepped inside. Inside, walls lined with outdated monitors blinked weakly, cables snaked like veins across. The floor and consoles bore faded insignias from Earth's long-abandoned space programs. A library of human technology mixed with alien devices. Somewhere in the center, a battered terminal displayed streams of alien code, Zarnathi code. It's beautiful in its own terrifying way, Reyna muttered, eyes wide as she peered over Maeve's shoulder. Maeve didn't respond. Her mind raced. She had spent weeks studying fragments of Zarnathi tech scavenged from downed drones and wreckage. This was the real thing, a full system. This code, she whispered. It's not just logic, it's arrogance. How do you mean? Beck asked, wiping sweat from his brow. Maeve pointed at a cluster of commands. Look here. Every command has a failsafe based on predicted human behavior. They assume we react in patterns, predictably. But humans, we're chaotic. We make mistakes, improvise, change plans on a whim. Reyna snorted. Like you last week? Blowing up that supply barge with a bunch of Molotov cocktails? Maeve smiled grimly. Exactly. They didn't see that coming. Her eyes narrowed as she tapped keys, slowly rewriting fragments of the alien code. She crafted a patch, a virus of sorts, designed to inject unpredictability into the Zarnathi command. Systems. Think of it like a hiccup in their logic, she said. An unexpected glitch that spreads confusion. Beck shook his head. If this works, it could cripple their supply lines. Maeve's heart pounded. This wasn't just hacking. It was a rebellion inside the machine itself. 2 days later, the moment came. From a concealed vantage point overlooking a Zarnathi supply convoy moving through the Appalachian foothills, Maeve and her team watched through binoculars. The convoy carried rare terraforming equipment, a critical asset for the invaders' plan to turn Earth's atmosphere into a slow death. Maeve keyed her comms. Ready? Reyna gave her a thumbs up, fingers hovering over a portable terminal. Linked to the mining node. Maeve held her breath. Reyna hit enter. Across the convoy's network, signals sputtered. Commands conflicted. Drones halted mid-flight, then swerved erratically. One transport crashed into a mountainside, shattering like glass. The Zarnathi troops scrambled, confused, firing wildly into the sky. A human cheer echoed through the comm link. Maeve let out a breath she didn't realize she'd been holding. That was beautiful, Beck said, grinning, but it was only the beginning. Word of the sabotage spread like wildfire through Earth's underground channels. The Zarnathi scrambled to repair their systems, but Maeve's patch was contagious, adapting to new defenses like a virus with a mind of its own. Every time they try to isolate it, Maeve explained, it mutates, it learns. Sounds like you've created a digital ghost, Reyna said. Maeve's lips curled into a proud smile. That night, Maeve sat alone in the dim glow of the mining node, eyes fixed on a flickering terminal displaying incoming transmissions intercepted from the Zarnathi fleet. Among the coded chatter, she detected something new, a nervous undercurrent. They're scared, Maeve whispered to herself, because for the first time we're fighting back their way. A sudden chime startled her. A message appeared, on screen, encrypted but recognizable. A challenge. Maeve's fingers flew over the keys, breaking down the code. It was a warning from the Empire. Stop the interference or face annihilation. She stared at the threat and smiled. They thought this would be easy, she said quietly. They thought Earth was just a planet to be claimed. But Maeve Carter was no longer just a survivor. She was a spark. Maeve Carter wasn't a hacker anymore. She was a contagion. Her virus, nicknamed Ghost Ember by the underground networks, had spread beyond Earth's atmosphere. It rode on back doors in stolen transmitters, bounced off hijacked satellites, and nestled into the Zarnathi's quantum lattice like a whisper in their bones. With every new encounter, it evolved, learning from the enemy's logic and weaponizing their pride. The virus didn't just corrupt code, it undermined confidence. Whole squads of Zarnathi soldiers received false orders. Supply ships rerouted mid-flight, only to vanish into storms or crash into mountains. Terraformers exploded from maintenance errors. The Empire's once perfect war machine was starting to stutter, and the galaxy took notice. But not all responses were slow. 3 Zarnathi cruisers entered Earth's orbit within the week. These weren't scouts, they were enforcers. Commanded by Admiral Vorzek, a name whispered in dread across subjugated systems, they bore a new order: silence the Ember. Permanently. Maeve saw it in the intercepted comms. A simple glyph burned in crimson: Asset E11, high-priority disruption node. Eliminate with prejudice. They've promoted you, Beck said dryly, scanning the decrypted files. From rebel to virus to existential threat. Maeve didn't look up. Her eyes were locked on the flickering interface. She had found something more important. A vulnerability buried deep in the Empire's communications architecture. One they didn't know she knew about. It's not enough to break their machines anymore, she muttered. We have to break their minds. So she gave them a ghost. Using the Empire's own signal relays, Maeve crafted a haunting. At first it was whispers, faint echoes in Zarnathi helmets, random countdowns that never ended. Then came the images, flickers of human faces they had killed, distorted by static staring back at them. Sometimes the faces laughed, other times they screamed. I told you we should have called it Ghost Ember, Reyna said, watching a captured trooper bash his helmet against a wall in panic. You built them a mirror, Beck said, low. And now they can't stand what's looking back. The results were immediate. Empire troops began deserting. Some shot themselves rather than face another mission on Earth. Others were found curled up in their ships, mumbling in their own tongue about voices in the wires. When Maeve hacked an orbital beacon and rerouted it to broadcast a single phrase. In their native dialect, it was the final straw. Your end begins on the world you thought broken. The message spread like wildfire across human and alien comms alike. Colonies long thought lost reconnected. Pirate captains began targeting Empire convoys. Even neutral species, once too afraid to act, started smuggling weapons to Earth's resistance in quiet defiance. Maeve had become more than a symbol. She was a catalyst. And the Zarnathi knew it. The attack came at midnight. No warning, no scans. Just a flash. And the entire mountain facility shuddered. Metal screamed, lights died. Maeve hit the ground as the ceiling collapsed. Beck tackled her, shielding her with his body. Sirens wailed in every direction. We've been traced, Reyna shouted, dragging a bleeding tech out of the wreckage. Drones swarmed through the broken facility like locusts. New models hardened against the virus, moving with cold, alien grace. Soldiers in adaptive armor followed, armed with anti-emission pulse rifles that fried electronics on contact. They weren't here to subjugate. They were here to erase. Maeve coughed through the smoke, pulling a burnt drive from the main console. She couldn't let Ghost Ember fall into their hands. As they ran, she activated the final failsafe, an overload script she'd never tested. Behind her, the mainframe exploded in a flash of blinding white, reducing decades of equipment to molten slag. The mountain burned, but she escaped. They lost half the team that night. Maeve buried them with her own hands. "No more hiding," she said, staring into the firelight. "They think they've adapted. They think I'm done." Reyna looked at her, hollow-eyed. "What do we do now?" Maeve stood, shoulders squared, face lit by the glow of the drive in her hand. "Now," she said, "we go to them." The sky above Earth wasn't blue anymore. It was veined with trails of black, scorch marks from orbital entries, debris fields, and the skeletal remains of destroyed satellites. Amid that graveyard, the Zarnathi cruisers circled like carrion, birds, their hulls gleaming with menace. Maeve Carter was going up there. She sat in the cramped cockpit of the Echidna, an old orbital junker retrofitted by a trio of rogue engineers who owed her a favor. The ship groaned with age, but its stealth plating held, and the drive hummed with barely contained chaos, half human, half alien, and entirely illegal. Beck strapped in beside her, checking his weapon for the 5th time. "So let me get this straight. We're boarding a Zarnathi cruiser, planting ghost ember on their core systems, and walking out alive?" "That's the plan," Maeve said. Reyna's voice crackled over the comm from the command seat in the back. "Technically, you'll be injected into their maintenance conduit and riding it to the inner data vault. Also, there's a 73% chance you'll be atomized." Beck sighed. "Can't wait." Maeve's hands hovered over the controls. Despite the risk, she was calm, focused. The drive she'd salvaged from the mountain base was now encoded with Ghost Ember's most advanced iteration. Not a virus anymore. Not a glitch. A message. One the Empire would feel from orbit to their central command across the stars. They breached low orbit under the radar. Earth fell away beneath them, a bruised marble still bleeding from invasion scars. The Zarnathi cruiser, Kavthera, loomed, ahead like a floating fortress, a cathedral of alien metal and humming death. No alarm sounded as the Echidna drifted toward its underbelly. The cruiser's sensors, laced with Ghost Ember's early echoes, saw only empty space. "I hope your code's still whispering in their ears," Beck muttered. Maeve smiled faintly. "It's singing lullabies." They docked with a service port, just long enough to eject. Maeve and Beck shot through the launch tube like bullets, landing hard on the outer hull. Their suits sealed, magnetized boots clamped, and in silence broken only by breath and heartbeat, they cut through the access hatch. Inside the cruiser, it was like walking through a living machine. The walls pulsed faintly, the architecture bent, in unnatural angles, and conduits glowed with bioluminescent fluids. "The Zarnathi didn't build ships, they grew them. It's like being inside a giant metal organism," Beck whispered. Maeve guided them deeper, following the map she'd reconstructed from stolen fragments. The data vault was central, buried, beneath the propulsion matrix and surrounded by neuro-linked guards whose minds were fused with the ship itself. But Ghost Ember had been seeded weeks ago. As they entered the inner corridor, the lights flickered. From behind a column, a guard stepped out. Tall, insectile, face split by a shifting, toothless maw. It froze, tilting its head. Then it started laughing, a garbled, static-laced imitation of human laughter. "Maeve," Beck warned. "I know." The guard collapsed mid-chuckle, convulsing. Its neural link had turned against it. Maeve stepped over the twitching corpse. "They're losing control." At the heart of the cruiser, Maeve found it. The vault. A perfect sphere of crystalline metal suspended by energy tendrils. The ship's mind. The hub of all fleet transmissions. A direct uplink to the Zarnathi Empire's central node. She pulled the drive from her pack. "This will cascade through every connected vessel," she said. "When they plug into the network, they'll receive the full payload." Beck raised a brow. "What's the message?" Maeve stared at the pulsing sphere. "Humanity isn't conquered. Humanity adapts." She pressed the drive into the interface. A Blinding surge of data exploded into the core. Lights stuttered, sirens wailed, the ship screamed, not in sound but in sensation, like the entire structure recoiled. Maeve and Beck ran. Alarms finally registered them as hostile. Drones poured into the corridors, but Ghost Ember was already inside their heads. Some turned on each other, others simply collapsed. They made it to the extraction port seconds before Reyna pulled them back into the Echidna, the whole cruiser, shuddering behind them. As they detached, they looked back. The Kavthera was turning, listing awkwardly, its propulsion failing. Through the viewing window, Maeve saw flashes. Internal fires, data hemorrhages, power spikes. It was dying. Not from weapons, from infection. In orbit, the virus spread unchecked, across 3 Zarnathi cruisers, then 10 more in nearby sectors. Their perfect communication networks now carried Maeve's message like a plague, and the galaxy was listening. The Ember wasn't just a rebel anymore, she was a storm. The Zarnathi didn't panic. They calculated. They strategized. They adapted. But when Ghost Ember spread through their fleet like wildfire, when command nodes burned from within, and elite pilots began hallucinating human voices singing nursery, rhymes, the Empire broke its own rule, no uncontrolled planetary actions, they sent the protocol breakers. Aboard the Echidna, drifting above Earth in low orbit, Maeve watched the classified transmission from a stolen relay buoy. The image, grainy and flickering, showed a dark sphere descending from a wormhole just beyond Mars' orbit. No weapons, no escorts, just a perfect black orb, 2 kilometers wide, pulsing with the energy of a contained singularity. Reyna's voice was tight. It's called a judgment core. They've used them on 3 planets in recorded history, not to win, to erase. Maeve leaned in, eyes cold. So they're done pretending. Beck looked between them. If that thing hits Earth, it won't hit, Reyna cut in. It'll unmake. They'll burn the planet's surface clean, then mine the ashes. Maeve didn't speak. Her hand was already tightening around the drive she'd recovered from the Kavthera cruiser. Its interface still pulsed with living code, her latest strain of Ghost Ember. But it wasn't ready. She had days, maybe hours, to evolve it. Not just a weapon now, but a shield. A firewall strong enough to blind or redirect the protocol breakers before the Judgment Core found its target. And for that, she needed the one place the Zarnathi had never thought a human could reach. The Dreamwell. The Dreamwell was myth, even among resistance circles. An AI complex buried beneath the lunar surface, built by a forgotten alliance of human and alien minds before the Empire rose. It was said to interface directly with raw quantum threads, allowing it to simulate every possible future. Which means it could model the Judgment Core, Maeve said, slipping into her old armored EVA suit. And give us a counter-strike plan, Beck added, slamming a charge into his pulse rifle. Reyna wasn't convinced. It's unstable tech, half of it older than Earth's internet, and no one's ever returned from there with their mind intact. Maeve clipped her helmet on. We don't need to survive it, we just need it to listen. The journey to the moon took 12 hours under stealth burn. No chatter, no scans. Just drifting silence and the occasional spark of static from the Judgment Core looming closer behind them. When they landed on the moon's far side, Maeve saw it. The Dreamwell wasn't a building, it was a wound. A sprawling chasm spiraled into the surface lined with humming pylons, black crystal towers, and light that bent the wrong way. As they descended, gravity twisted, time staggered, and language broke apart. Maeve began hearing voices, not Zarnathi, not human, something older. The Ember returns. The thread burns anew. Show us your truth. She knelt before a central platform, placing the drive into a crystalline slot. The Dreamwell ignited. Her mind stretched, pulled across light and probability. She saw the core descending. She saw cities vanish, oceans boil, forests wither. But she also saw paths, tiny, flickering slivers of survival. A mirror fleet made of fractured Zarnathi vessels turned by ghost ember. A false signal, painting Earth as already dead. A virus designed not to destroy, but to deceive. And at the center of it all, herself. One human, a defiant girl from Kentucky, a glitch in their logic. She woke screaming. Beck held her down, Raina shouting diagnostics. Her suit was smoking. The dream well was dim. "I saw it," Maeve rasped. "I saw how to blind it." She uploaded the rewritten Ember code to their relay drone. "Send it through every fleet wreck, every fragment, every whisper channel." Let. The Ember spread again, this time with illusion woven in. As they left the moon, Earth loomed below, peaceful and unaware. The Judgment Corps was days away, but now it was looking at a ghost planet, one that already burned, and in the shadow of that lie, Maeve Carter prepared the final strike. The Judgment Corps slowed its descent. Orbiting just beyond the moon's shadow, the Zarnathi weapons scanned the Earth below, an intricate weave of data pulses, emissions, and biosignatures. But something had changed. The blue planet, once loud, with life, was now silent. No active comms, no energy bursts, no orbital defenses. The Corps' primary logic thread, built to analyze viability for erasure, triggered a protocol stall. Query: target viability uncertain. Initiate verification phase. From the command cradle deep within the core, a Zarnathi overseer, half machine, half thought form, extended its cognition to the surface. Its senses touched only death, radiation spikes, burned cities, atmosphere, instability. It saw what the virus wanted it to see, a dead world. The lie was working. High above, aboard the Echidna, Maeve Carter watched the telemetry stream with clenched fists. She and Raina had fed the data loop for hours, ghost signals bouncing off defunct satellites, mimicking fallout zones and mass extinction patterns. "The Dreamwell's decoy net is holding," Raina said. "They're convinced we're gone. For now," Beck added grimly. "But they'll scan deeper soon. They'll find the trick." "Which is why we need to go louder," Maeve said, turning to the last surviving piece of Zarnathi tech they'd captured, a psionic relay core pulled from the Cavthera cruiser before it collapsed. It pulsed on the table, alive, twitching, with alien code barely contained. Raina stepped back. "You really want to talk to them?" "No," Maeve said. "I want to haunt them." They activated the relay. The ship shuddered as frequencies beyond human comprehension rippled outward. Maeve stepped into the signal field, her neural interface lit with Dreamwell code, her voice piggybacking on the same psychic channels the Zarnathi used to command their fleets. She projected her presence into their minds, not as a message, but as a phantom. "You killed us," she said in their tongue. "You scorched our cities, you erased our data, and now you've come too late." The Corps' central AI reeled. Logic circuits fought to reconcile the voice with the sensory data. The viral illusion, the scorched Earth, held strong. Anomaly. Confirmed. Species 5 human terminated. Judgment redundant. Maeve grinned through sweat and static. "Run along, metal gods. There's nothing left to burn." But the Empire had protocols for everything, and when logic failed, they reverted to instinct. The Judgment Corps hesitated. Then, without warning, it opened a channel to the Zarnathi High Nexus. A shimmering portal bloomed above Earth, ripping reality like paper, and through it descended a dreadnought unlike any they'd faced. The Herald of Purity. Not automated. Not unmanned, piloted by Admiral Vorzek himself. Back on Earth, the Ember network flared to life. Old war bunkers lit up. Exiled rebel bands resurfaced. Maeve's signal went planetary. "Their flagship's here," she broadcasted. "The One," giving the orders. "But they still believe we're dead," Raina understood first. "If we break cover, The lie falls apart. Maeve turned to Beck. Not if we time it perfectly. She pulled up the new payload, a hybrid signal crafted from Dreamwell blueprints and Zarnathi psychic resonance. It didn't destroy. It mirrored. They would reflect Earth's death state back at the Herald's own systems, tricking it into believing its own mind was infected. Can we inject it directly? Beck asked. Maeve nodded. Only one way. We board it. He grinned. One last ride, then. Hours later, cloaked by the silent chaos of their own deception, the Echidna rocketed toward the Herald's underbelly. Inside, Maeve and Beck prepped the injection drive. This won't kill them, he said, locking in the override. No, Maeve said, but it'll show them what they fear most. Power turned against itself. They breached the hull. Sirens screamed. Drones responded. But too late. Maeve jammed the drive into the Herald's neural relay and triggered the mirror. Reality folded. The flagship systems believed it had succumbed to Ghost Ember. Weapons froze. Commands looped. The crew, once Imperial perfection, began fighting hallucinations. Admiral Vorzek stared into his command interface and saw a reflection of failure so complete it broke his link to the Empire. He ordered a full retreat. Earth lived. The Judgment Corps reversed trajectory, vanishing back into the wormhole that birthed it. The lie held. The virus endured. Humanity survived. And Maeve Carter, glitch in the machine, virus in the code, slumped against the Echidna's wall. Smiling through blood. We're not just alive, she whispered. We just won the first war. For the first time in 5 years, the stars above Earth were clear. No cruisers, no dreadnoughts, no judgment corps. The Zarnathi Empire was gone, not destroyed, just driven back. Shattered in confidence, shaken in mind. A machine civilization, built on predictability, had been blindsided by the one thing it couldn't model: human defiance. Maeve Carter stood on a rooftop in the ruins of New Boston, the air around her thick with wind and ash. But also hope. Below, survivors gathered in the broken streets, cobbling together makeshift homes, lighting fires not for war, but warmth. A new frequency pulsed softly in her neural link, Ghost Ember's heartbeat, now spread across the globe like digital mycelium. What started as a virus had become something else entirely, a signal of unity, of resistance, of rebirth. Beck stepped beside her, handing her a ration bar and gesturing to the skyline. Hard to believe we're not about to get vaporized anymore. Maeve took a bite, her expression unreadable. They'll be back, just not the same way. They think we're extinct, Beck said. They've buried us in their archives. A closed file. Deleted. Maeve smiled faintly. Exactly. That's our greatest weapon now. Across the solar system, wreckage drifted like silent monuments. The Kavthera, the Herald of Purity, dozens of fallen vessels, each now infected by Ghost Ember. Not just corrupted, but repurposed. Earth's broken satellites were coming back online. Orbital drones reprogrammed with hybrid code swept the upper atmosphere, repairing, scanning, rebuilding. The resistance hadn't just survived, it was evolving, and it was no longer alone. Reyna's voice came through on the secure uplink. Maeve, we just intercepted an open band signal from Proxima Gate. You're going to want to hear it, Maeve patched in, and a cold, clipped voice echoed in her mind. To the human known as the Ember, we have seen the infection. We have tasted your fear, your fury. We are not beaten. We are re-evaluating. This is not surrender. This is adaptation. Beck frowned. They're warning us. No, Maeve murmured, eyes narrowing. They're learning, just like us. She turned away from the rooftop view and made for the stairs. There was no victory parade waiting, no flags, no treaties, just work, endless work. But humanity was good at that. good at clawing their way out from beneath the boots of giants. Weeks passed. Maeve led the rebuilding of New Boston's comms hub, personally reprogramming the orbital transceiver arrays. Not to reach out in peace, but to watch, to be ready. Across Earth, pockets of resistance revealed themselves, cells that had gone underground when the invasion began. Now they looked to the sky again, and to her, to the Ember. The name had grown beyond her. It wasn't just Maeve Carter now, it was a movement. On the 100th day after the Judgment Corps' retreat, a ceremony was held. Unofficial, simple, and quiet. Maeve stood on the wreckage of a fallen Zarnathi spire, surrounded by engineers, fighters, kids with soldering kits and scars. She didn't speak long. "We're not celebrating a victory," she said. "We're celebrating a beginning. The stars were never theirs to own. We proved that. But we didn't just win with bullets or code. We won because we refused to disappear." A murmur passed through the crowd. Approval, pride, something like belief. "We don't need statues or songs. We need plans, ships, networks, because they'll come again. And when they do, we won't be hiding." She looked up at the stars, brighter now than ever. "We'll be waiting." In the years that followed, humanity didn't rebuild what they had lost. They built something new, fleets powered by hybrid tech, a global defense network woven with Ghost Ember's code, and something deeper, an understanding that their greatest strength wasn't in their weapons. It was in the anomaly that could never be erased. The unpredictability of the human spirit, the ember that refused to go out, and in the dark beyond the stars. The Empire remembered. They had seen extinction, and it looked very human.